Ahoy everyone, Tightrope here, and in this video we're taking a look at the balance changes for US Forces and Wehrmacht that arrived in the 2.0.5 patch for COH3. Starting with the US Forces balance changes in the Air Support Center. When they introduced this, the unlock for improved aircraft armor back in 2.0, they removed this one here, Air Supply, which reduces the munitions cost of these two abilities. And they kept the cooldown buff, which was good for the Recon plane, faster Recon planes, but these other two are pretty expensive, so buffing their cooldown wasn't that impactful. So they've reintroduced Air Supply, got rid of the cooldown buff, and yeah, reduces these by 20 munitions each. The tank depot has had its fuel cost reduced by 5. Remember, in the 2.0 patch, it had its fuel cost increased by 25, I think it was the most of any of the tier 4 techs that all got increased at that timing, so they've rolled it back slightly. Now it's 140 fuel. On the 4x4, when you get the Scout Commander upgrade, which unlocks the signal detection, that detection range has gone up. Used to be 90, now it goes out to 125, which is the same as the 221 and the Recon Tractor. They both say how far they go in the description, whereas this does not for some reason, but that's alright. It is now the cheapest way to get this kind of map hackery. It only costs 200 manpower for population. 50 munitions, which is a little bit more than the antenna on the 221, but does give it plus 10 sight at the same time. Yeah, I suppose it's quite a squishy vehicle, quite easy to kill, maybe especially easier than the Recon Tractor, which maybe can get the DAC vehicle upgrades and smoked later on. But yeah, pretty cheap way of getting this map hack stuff. I think most players don't really like the scanning ability too much. I suppose maybe the saving grace is that US Forces don't have like a walking Stuka to combine it up with. Their artillery options are maybe a bit limited if you don't go for the whiz-bang. But yeah. On the US Forces machine guns, their Vet 1 ability improved defensive setup has been nerfed. Used to provide a 10% bonus that has now been reduced to 5%. This is an interesting change. I was expecting maybe they would nerf this, the Vet 0 bonus, by 5% and leave this as strong as it was. Now with only 5% bonus, I think I'd probably prefer to go for button, especially on the 50 cal, which has pretty good penetration. You can actually get the full button value on most light vehicles with it. For the US Forces Mortar, its Vet 1 ability, Airburst Barrage, has been nerfed. They've given it a pretty hefty penalty to most of its scatter stats. So I'm going to see how it goes. Up against a few targets. MG AT gun, and then just compared to a regular barrage. So I think I'm getting a pretty good RNG to start things off with on the mortar, but then started getting really wonky. So you can see it's scattering way more than it used to. Can't even consistently decrew a team weapon if it doesn't dodge at all. Basically the exact same performance against a machine gun. I mean, this was one of the main reasons you build a mortar as US Forces, and I think that's kind of gone now. Like, yeah, if you get good RNG, you can do some big damage still, but consistency of the barrage is pretty good. I suppose this does have 5 range more than a barrage. Is that an overnerf? The motor pool has had its fuel cost reduced by 5. They say they want to sharpen up light vehicle timings and make the AT gun a bit more accessible. Alright, but then on top of that, they also made the Greyhound 5 fuel cheaper as well. So it's going to be arriving 10 fuel earlier in total, which I think is a pretty big deal. I didn't think it was that bad before this. Now it's going to be even better. But yeah, I think previous patch we saw quite a lot, at least in 1v1s, of barracks and weapon support center combine both of those, stalling straight for the Pershing. But now, probably with this change, we'll see more Greyhounds again stalling to the Pershing. So that's something to look forward to. And I could imagine this may be causing a bit of a resurgence in Greyhound spam with armored. You're getting all those discounts on it. With the somewhat new Vet 1 ability, Raider, able to, zip around the map, decapturing a lot of territory. With these, could be pretty hard to keep up with. Oh, also on the Greyhound, both of its upgrades, the 50 cal and the armor skirts, now take 10 seconds less to complete the upgrade. The Hellcat has received a huge number of buffs in this patch. First off, to its veterancy, its Vet 1 bonus is now plus 15% to weapon accuracy instead of an acceleration bonus. This is a huge change. You guys know that acceleration bonuses are kind of trash in this game because you get like some kind of acceleration boost when starting out from a standstill. So acceleration bonus is just not very relevant. But 15% accuracy on the Hellcat, when it does, miss like a decent amount, that is a big deal. Also at Vet 3, the penetration buff has gone from 30% up to 50%, so that's nice. They did in 2.0 nerf the Hellcat's near penetration, so it's kind of, claws it back a little bit. Then the shoot and scoop bonus, one of its Vet 1 options, that's increased in duration, gone from 6 up to 8 seconds. So it's looking better and better as an option. On top of all this, the Hellcat also got a slight reload buff, so it's going to be shooting their shots quarter of a second faster per shot. So that's nice. So I wanted to test this out in the head-to-head against the Panzer IV. Haven't done this test for a while. Let's see who can win the head-to-head. The Hellcat has less health, but does more damage per shot. Slight twist to how I'm going to do it this time around. On this side, I'm going to activate HVAP because now this is one of your Vet 1 options and it gives you plus 25% damage. Is that going to be enough combined up with the reload bonus to beat the P4 in the head-to-head? P4, notice, does not have the skirts upgrade, so that may change things further, but it's kind of out of the scope of what we're doing here. So, alright, let's see how this goes. It looks like the HVAC wears off before they can get the final shell. But with the extra damage from the HVAC and the reload bonus, looks like it's pretty much neck and neck between these two. It's interesting. So yeah, pretty much neck and neck with the HVAC and the reload bonus, which means that, maybe we won't see much shoot and scoop because people will definitely be incentivized to go for the HVAP. Though, as I said, once this gets the skirts again, plus 80 health, it's going to put it out of range. On the Sherman Bulldozer, the Dozer Blade ability has been buffed. Now when you put it down, it will reduce mine damage by 75% instead of 50% and only reduces the speed of the Bulldozer by 25% instead of 50%. So it's a pretty hefty buff. I will say just about nobody was using this with the Dozer Blade down beforehand. So it did need to be buffed, and these are some pretty big buffs. I was actually thinking regards to the amount of speed debuff it gives you, maybe that's about the right amount, 25%, because it's kind of on the threshold where you might consider leaving it down the entire time, but then 25% might mean the difference between surviving, backing away from an AT gun in time or dying. So yeah, maybe it's the right number. Had a mine there, and he took 50 damage from it. Wow. So yeah, that's pretty good. Besides this, they also buffed up the veterancy on the Bulldozer. At Vet 2, its rate of fire bonus has gone up by 5%, and at Vet 3, it's gone up by 10%. So some pretty nice buffs to the Bulldozer. The Advanced Infantry Battle Group has received a couple changes. First off, to the artillery radio beacon that you can build with your artillery observers. When you monitor it, right-click on it, you see currently the range is 50. Then now it goes out to 75, so it's 10 more range when you monitor it. I don't think it was very common for it to be monitored. Didn't see many people doing this, so seems like a reasonably safe change. Designate assault position, that's come down in cost by 15 munitions to 65. I already thought this ability was pretty good before this, so I'm a little bit surprised to see this change. Pretty good for popping down and then your range is sprinting around doing crazy stuff. I think frontline medical station may be more popular in team games, but this very, very good. So I'm a little bit surprised to see that one. The Ranger's weapon crate drop used to have a minute-long cooldown on it. Let's see how long it is now. Immediate. Not even like 5 seconds or anything. And I don't have any speed ups on, guys. That's just how fast they can come in now. So you got the munitions, you can spam these weapon crates. Ammunition storage has been nerfed, the buffs it provides have been decreased by 10%, going from 40 down to 30%, which I think is a good thing because it was just too strong. I never understood why they buffed up to 40% in the first place. I think most people decided that was a bad idea as soon as they saw those patch notes. Finally changed. Now you can see the radius of the aura as you go to construct it, so that's a nice little quality of life change. They've also decreased that by 10, so it's covering a smaller area. And I think they've made the explosion a bit more deadly. So we're going to try out the ammunition storage explosion. I think it does the same amount of damage to friendly vehicles as enemies, so we're going to try to test that out here. And then we kind of got a range spread across the range. I think this will be close to the maximum range over here.
Hey, that's us, fellas.
See how we go. Less than I was expecting it to, if I'm honest. I thought it was going to do 280 damage. In the heavy weapons battle group, the 3-inch anti-tank gun has been buffed. They decreased its manpower cost. Didn't specify exactly how much in the patch notes. I think maybe about 40 manpower. Not entirely sure. But what they've mainly done is they've buffed up the barrage. They made its AoE a little bit wider, but they've massively increased the amount of damage it does inside that AoE. And they've increased its rate of fire. So we're going to try it out here against a mortar and an anti-tank gun. Close to max range. Ooh, one hit. So still a bit of scatter at this range, not guaranteed to hit or anything, but wow, that first hit it got on the pack after it missed a shot was kind of crazy. See how high it looped one shot there? Why does it... I don't know why. Sometimes it shoots so low, sometimes it shoots so high. I understood why that happens in this game. I mean, it looks alright. So the barrage looks reasonably solid, but I think most players are still going to go for the Pershing instead, especially because, you know, there's so many walking Stukas around. Pretty hard for your 3-inch to be successful. Speaking of the Pershing, they nerfed it a bit. Its command point cost has been increased by 1, so 1 more CP to unlock it. And they've nerfed its veterancy. Previously it had kind of medium tank veterancy levels, increased it up to heavy tank levels. Though I think it's still going to be terrorizing 1v1s. You know, as I mentioned earlier, with the motor pool coming down in cost, and same with the Greyhound, I think players will just kind of switch over to motor pool spam, stalling for the Pershing, only coming in 1 command point later. I think it's still going to be extremely strong. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't kind of touch these call-in heavy tanks, maybe put them behind tech like they were in COH3, because it's kind of like a little bit of a win-win. In 1v1, you don't get those big stall-in type strategies like we're seeing being very popular in the previous patch. And in 4v4s, maybe when command point accumulation is slower and players have built a lot of resource caches, boosting up their fuel income, then they can still unlock heavy tanks in a timely fashion as well. So it kind of works well for both 1s and 4s. So a little bit surprised we didn't see a shift away from the call-in style. Moving on to the Wehrmacht changes now, and starting out in the headquarters, the medical station no longer costs any fuel to upgrade, but has gone up in cost by 25 manpower only. You know, a lot of players, including myself, have been building the medic bunker instead, because it gives you the option to casualty clear. So these medics run onto the field, capture the wounded soldiers, run back, you get free reinforcements. So over the course of a longer game, especially in 1s where the medics don't have very far to run, that can save you a tremendous amount of manpower. So that's why it was the better option of the two, in my opinion. But in 4v4s where the medics have, you know, really long way to run, mid-bunker loses quite a lot of value building in your base at least. So now the medical station I think is a very good option if you just want to heal up your squads that have retreated to base before they return to the front lines. So I think this gives Wehrmacht now the best healing in the game, because, you know, this is a pretty cheap option. You get the casualty clearing on a bunker building as well, which is harder to kill than like the US mid tent. And you've got the Grenadier Vet 1 healing as well, so Wehrmacht definitely the best healing faction in the game. And this does make me feel a little bit sad for Brits, because they have to pay 125 manpower, 20 fuel for their healing, doesn't casualty clear, has a mid tent that can easily be destroyed, much easier than killing off a Wehrmacht headquarters, so poor Brits. Wehrmacht Panzergrenadiers have had their accuracy buffed, about 10% better at near range, and about 15% better at mid-range. Wehrmacht Panzergrenadiers weren't that popular in the previous patch, maybe overshadowed by Jagers a bit, so I think this will make them a lot more popular. Alright, so pretty comfortable win for the P-Greens up close, but mid-range seems to be neck and neck. Just comes down to a little bit RNG, nothing else in it. Jagers have received a change. You can see they currently have access to the smoke grenade as usual, but if you upgrade them with the Panzer Schreck, the smoke disappears. So yeah, you can still get smoke if you go for the Recon package or leave them vanilla, but don't have it on the Schreck anymore. This is going to make it way easier to counter Jagers with machine guns. You know, previously maybe they could start getting suppressed, especially if they're on light cover. They'd have more than enough time to launch a smoke grenade and then just run away from the machine gun. But now they're probably going to have to retreat quite a lot more often against suppression. Like, you know, the Schreck is pretty terrible at attack round because of its horrible scatter, so smoking into attack round was never really their thing, but yeah, going to be way easier to counter Schrecked up Jagers now. The MP40 upgrade that you get on Grenadiers when you go for the Breakthrough Battle Group has been buffed this patch. 10% more accuracy at near and mid-range, so not a huge buff. If I remember rightly, this upgrade never got touched during the TTK changes back in 1.7, which is why it has been extremely unpopular as of late. So it's definitely due a buff. Pretty mild buff too, because you know a lot of units in that patch got 25% EPS increase, and these are only getting 10% now, but we'll see how it goes. Also in the Breakthrough Battle Group, the Command Tank has had the range on its Armored Leadership aura buffed by 10. So now goes as far as it can see basically. So it's going to make it quite a lot easier to get value out of this. You know, this buffs up your own tanks. I think this does make more of a difference in DAC because you can get the Command Tank and the Tiger there, but here you either choose the Command Tank or the Tiger. It locks out the other option. And you know, the 20% extra rate of fire and armor is obviously very strong at buffing up the Tiger, which has such a powerful gun and such strong armor already. So maybe this is a more impactful change to DAC actually. But you guys know I'm going to be trying Command Tank plus Stugs again after this. The MG15 upgrade on Fallpio has been buffed. They gave it flat accuracy at all ranges. And you can see the impact of that here now. Blue line is the new value. It actually gets better as the enemy gets further away, up to a point, and then it gets slightly worse because you actually get higher rate of fire when the enemy is further away on this upgrade. They said that this wasn't as popular after the grenade launcher buffs, which was definitely true, so they felt the need to buff this. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't like roll back some of the grenade launcher buffs, maybe it's bonus damage against units in light cover or something like that, but alright. They said they made the MG15 quite similar to the Bren, and you can see them compared here. The Bren in blue is still a little bit more powerful at all ranges. Coastal Reserves have received 2 changes in this patch. First off, to the anti-tank grenade, you can now unlock it by going for infantry quarters. So there it is, unlocked now. Same as Grenadiers, they also unlock their Panzerfaust if you go for infantry quarters, so kind of just bringing them more in line with Grenadiers. And if you want to go for extended tier 1 play with Coastal Reserves, you don't have to worry quite so much against the enemy's light vehicles. On top of that, they also gave Coastal Reserves a 1.25 capture rate. So instead of 1.0, so this makes them capture territory faster. Not decapture, it doesn't change that, but capture territory faster. Again, this kind of brings them more in line with other main lines. I think Grenadiers and Riflemen both have 1.25, but Tommies and DAC P-Greens both have 1.33. So yeah, it just means they can capture territory a bit faster. You're not punished quite so hard by going for lots of coastals early on. You're not going to get massively out-captured on the map, which was a big problem. In 1v1s playing these US Forces, previous patch, pretty common for players to go 2 scouts, 3 rifles, and if you're going for coastals, you just could not keep up on map control. You cannot keep up that capture rate. can't really win fights against the riflemen, and can't keep up in terms of capping. The double scouts also nullify your machine guns. It was rough. So yeah, 1.25 cap rate, gonna make them quite a lot better, especially in those strategies where you just go for one coastal at the start of the game. It's gonna get you off to a really fast start now. The Terror battle group has received a couple changes. We're starting out with heavy gunnery. It's had a command point cost reduction, going from 1 down to 0. Obviously, it's up against some really stiff competition. Machine gun camouflage, which was extremely strong in the previous patch. So yeah, basically saw no play heavy gunnery. Now, you know, you can select it one or the other. No command point cost attached to it. Maybe you're going to be able to get the King Tiger out a little bit faster if you want to go for a strategy with this. On top of the command point cost reduction, it also costs 5 less munitions when you activate it. So a couple nice buffs there for heavy gunnery. Machine gun camouflage has been nerfed. Now upon exiting cover, the camouflage only lasts for 2 seconds instead of 4. So they can only run about 10 range before getting revealed. So it's going to make it harder to move your machine gun around while staying in cover. And then upon re-entering cover as well, it takes 2 seconds before they become camouflaged instead of half a second. So there were definitely situations before where maybe you would spot an enemy machine gun that would be in cover and it wasn't set up. And then before you could even like shoot at it, it would go camouflage, then reveal itself with the ambush bonus and just roast your squad. And it would be quite frustrating to play against. And this change is aimed at reducing those kind of instances. We're a little bit surprised they didn't add maybe like a command point cost to this, maybe 1 CPs or maybe a muni cost, something like 20 munis, just so you couldn't have a lot of camouflage machine guns early on and still have munitions to foust any light vehicles that come and try to interrupt them. I think at the moment it's not like a huge problem in the meta game because recon units are both very popular and very good. Like scouts, double scouts are very common to see, recce sections, dingoes, all very popular units in the meta game and all very good. But if that's ever not the case, if they get nerfed, fall out of meta, this is still going to be, I think, a problem with its current, 2.05 performance. The V1 rocket strike has had an audio change. First off, they said they fixed a bug where maybe sometimes the audio wasn't playing for the enemy, so that's good. And then they've just, hear how it sounds.
V1 strike underway. Brace for impact.
So yeah, got that siren at the start of it. It's going to be pretty hard to miss that. And then there's that constant like escalating whistle, I suppose, as it gets closer to landing. That's also very prominent.
V1 strike underway. Brace for impact.
I did hear that they also changed the mix so that now when there's a lot of fighting happening as well, the fighting will be maybe lowered in volume and the V1 will be proportionately increased, so it will be easier to notice. That might be a little bit too far on the easy to hear side, I don't know. So here we are watching from enemy's point of view with battle sounds going. Battle sounds are so much quieter, right? Battle sounds are so quiet, you couldn't even really hear that walking Stuka coming in. I mean, is that the new strat now? Pop the V1, dulls down all the other noises, then everything else you do, you can do kind of stealthily and the enemy won't hear it. Maybe that's the new strat. One thing that I would also like is that at the end of a replay like this, I didn't get immediately booted out to stats. I could like survey the battlefield afterwards. That would be a nice change to Relic, please. The King Tiger has received a couple changes in this patch. First off, to its command point cost, it's gone up by 1. So the earliest you can unlock it now is 13 command points, which is kind of bringing in line with the other heavy tanks. The Tiger through Breakthrough, it's the same thing. 13 command points. And the Pershing after this patch, also 13 command points. Black Prince is 14, but the Croc is a little bit earlier at 10. So you're just kind of standardizing it between all the heavy tanks. It's got more health now. You can see 1300 health plus 100 health on the King Tiger. And there used to be a bug, you may not have been aware of it, but you can see its speed going forwards is 3.25. It used to have slower reverse speed than going forward speed, which was not widespread knowledge, but you can see now it's operating fine, exact same speed going forwards and backwards, so it should be easier to get the King Tiger out of danger by backing up. If it's overextended, it should make it way easier to keep this alive, combined up with the extra health. Thank you to all of my Patreon backers, and if you're enjoying my content, I hope you consider coming on board.